Someone wrote a book known as the Gospel of Judas a long time ago. It's not in the Bible. In fact, the people in charge of the Bible made sure no one would ever read it. This book tells a totally different version of the story. This gospel says that Judas wasn't a villain at all. He was actually Jesus's most trusted friend. He probably is the man everyone loves to hate. He's the guy who betrayed Jesus and sold him out for a handful of silver coins. Everyone knows Judas as the ultimate bad guy. But what if we've been wrong about him all along? In this gospel, Judas wasn't selling out Jesus for money. He was following orders. According to this forbidden book, Judas was doing exactly what Jesus asked him to do. And it wasn't betrayal. It was part of a secret plan. For almost 2,000 years, no one could read the Gospel of Judas. The world banned it, locked it away, and kept it hidden. Someone discovered it, deep in the Egyptian desert, a lost piece of history. The fragile ancient paper, crumbling at the edges, bore its writing. Decades passed before they finally translated it, leaving the world in shock. It's a story about secrets, about questioning everything, about the courage to follow a path no one else understands. And maybe, just maybe, it's about you too. If we could misunderstand Judas for such a long time, what other stories or individuals could we be misinterpreting? People have branded Judas Iscariot as the ultimate traitor for centuries. Judas Iscariot betrayed Jesus with a kiss in the Garden of Gethsemane, selling him out for 30 pieces of silver. But what if this story of betrayal wasn't the full picture? What if centuries of history, fear, and control concealed the truth? The Gospel of Judas, an ancient text rediscovered in the 1970s, challenges everything we thought we knew about redemption, loyalty, and betrayal. This forbidden gospel is an ancient text from the 2nd century AD. It came from a group of early Christians called the Gnostics, who believed that salvation wasn't about following rules or rituals. Instead, they said it came from gnosis, or secret knowledge. Understanding hidden truths about the universe and the divine was crucial for their salvation. The Gospel of Judas wasn't like the other stories about Jesus. It painted Judas not as a villain, but as a trusted disciple, the only one who truly understood Jesus' mission. According to this text, Jesus shared secret teachings with Judas, truths so profound that even the other disciples couldn't comprehend them. Judas wasn't just carrying out an act of betrayal, he was helping fulfill a divine plan. According to the Gospel of Judas, Jesus told Judas that his earthly body was a prison for his divine spirit. To free Jesus from his mortal body and allow him to fulfill his purpose, he needed someone to take the ultimate step. Judas, in this version, wasn't betraying Jesus out of greed or malice. He was following instructions, knowing full well the consequences. Imagine the weight of that decision. Judas had to knowingly take on the role of history's greatest villain to carry out what he believed was an act of ultimate loyalty. He sacrificed his own reputation, his own soul in the eyes of others, to help Jesus achieve something far greater than anyone else could see. This changes everything, doesn't it? Judas isn't just a name associated with betrayal. He transforms into a representation of the ultimate selflessness, sacrificing all for the greater good, even if it results in eternal hatred. Fast forward to the 4th century AD. The Christian church was consolidating its power, organizing the many different writings about Jesus into a unified Bible. Early church leaders concentrated on presenting a clear and consistent narrative of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. The Gospel of Judas, it was too dangerous. It questioned the established teachings about sin, redemption, and the role of the church itself. If Judas wasn't a villain, what did that mean for the idea of forgiveness? If salvation came from secret knowledge, what happened to faith as the ultimate path to God? The church needed people to follow a single, unified belief system, and this gospel posed too many questions. Therefore, authorities declared the Gospel of Judas heresy, banned it, and concealed it. Time had forgotten it for centuries, leaving it as a missing piece of history. In 1978, researchers discovered a manuscript in a limestone box near El Minya, Egypt. It wasn't until 2006 that scholars finally translated the text, bringing the story back into the light after nearly 2,000 years. The Gnostics, who likely wrote this gospel, saw the world in a radically different way. They believed that the demiurge, a lesser, flawed being, rather than the ultimate God, created the physical world. This material world was full of deception and suffering, and true salvation meant escaping it to return to a higher divine reality. Unlike the other disciples, Judas did not suffer from blind faith. He could see the bigger picture. When Jesus told him that his betrayal was necessary to fulfill the divine plan, Judas acted out of understanding, not malice. He knew it was the only way to free Jesus' spirit and help humanity connect to the divine source. The Gospel of Judas flips the traditional story of betrayal on its head. It challenges us to re-evaluate our definitions of loyalty, redemption, and our understanding of those we label as villains. This isn't just a story about Judas. It's a tale of defying authority, scrutinizing our ingrained beliefs, and daring to perceive things differently. What makes this even more unsettling is how relevant it feels today. How often do we judge others based on a single act or a single story? How often do we miss the bigger picture because we're afraid to ask hard questions? The Gospel of Judas forces us to confront these fears and think about the cost of understanding truths that others might want to keep hidden. For the Gnostics, Gnosis was about unlocking hidden truths about the universe, the divine, and yourself. They believed that most people lived trapped in a kind of illusion, unable to see the greater reality behind the world we know. To understand their perspective, think about the way you can only see the surface of the ocean while an entire world exists below. The Gnostics believed our physical world was like that surface, a shadow of something much deeper and more profound. Gnostic thought holds that the ultimate, perfect God did not create the world we live in. Instead, a lesser, flawed being known as the demiurge created it. People saw this figure, sometimes associated with the God of the Old Testament, as powerful but imperfect, trapping humanity in the material world, a world of suffering, conflict, and limitations. For the Gnostics, salvation wasn't about staying in this world or following earthly laws. It was about breaking free, leaving behind the illusions of the physical, and reconnecting with the true divine source, which was pure and far beyond anything we could see or touch. Now let's bring Judas into this picture. The Gospel of Judas suggests he wasn't like the other disciples. While they focused on the physical and earthly teachings of Jesus, Judas understood something deeper. He saw past the surface. In this story, Jesus revealed to Judas the secrets of the cosmos, truths about his origins and his destiny. According to the Gospel, Jesus once informed Judas that he originated from a higher spiritual realm that transcended this imperfect world. Judas grasped this profound truth, recognizing that Jesus' death wasn't a tragedy, but a necessary step to free his spirit from the material prison of his body. For Judas, the act of betrayal wasn't betrayal at all. It was an act of ultimate knowledge and trust. He carried out a plan that would allow Jesus to complete his mission and help humanity reconnect with the divine. The Gnostics believed that not everyone could handle Gnosis. The Gnostics reserved it for those who were prepared to seek it out and embrace the associated risks. This idea put them in direct conflict with the early church, which taught that salvation was for everyone through faith and devotion. The church leaders were terrified by the concept of secret knowledge. What role would the church play if people could find salvation through personal discovery? If people didn't need priests, rituals, or doctrine, the entire structure of religious authority could crumble. This fear drove them to ban texts like the Gospel of Judas, labeling them as dangerous and heretical. Think about what it means to have secret knowledge. It gives you power, but also isolates you. It challenges the way the world works. For Judas, having Gnosis made him a figure of both great understanding and great tragedy. Even though it meant facing centuries of condemnation as a traitor, he knew what he had to do. The same is true for anyone who dares to look beyond the surface of things. Gnosis necessitates challenging conventional wisdom, questioning authority, and occasionally standing alone against the world. It's not easy, and that's why so few people seek it out. But for those who do, Gnosis offers something incredible: freedom. Gnosis provides liberation from fear, ignorance, and the constraints of a world that is merely a portion of the narrative. The idea of hidden knowledge isn't just an ancient concept. We continue to live in a world where many truths remain hidden, either intentionally or by accident. People often advise us to accept things as they are, trust our education, and refrain from asking too many questions. But what if the most important truths are the ones we're afraid to uncover? The Gospel of Judas reminds us that seeking understanding is both a challenge and a gift. It asks us to step into the unknown, to question the stories we've always believed, and to look deeper. It's not just about Judas or Gnosticism, it's about all of us. The Gospel of Judas isn't just a story about one man or even about Jesus. It's also a story about power, who has it, who wants to keep it, and how far they'll go to maintain control. At its heart is a battle between two very different ideas: whether truth belongs to everyone or if it's something only a few should decide. This section of the story will delve into how the Gospel of Judas transformed into a perilous emblem of defiance against authority and the reasons behind its designation as heresy. Let's travel back to the 4th century AD, a time when Christianity was becoming a dominant force in the Roman Empire. However, this newfound power presented a challenge. Christians couldn't agree on the meaning or practice of their faith. There were dozens of different teachings, texts, and beliefs. Some groups focused on faith and rituals, while others, like the Gnostics, believed in salvation through secret knowledge. To unite the growing Christian population, church leaders had to create a consistent message. This required determining which texts to include in the official Bible and which to leave out. It was a monumental task, not just about faith, but about authority. The Gnostics, with their focus on hidden truths, posed a problem. They believed that not everyone could grasp the deeper mysteries of the divine. They even questioned the role of church leaders, arguing that individuals could find salvation without the assistance of priests, bishops, or formal institutions. For a church trying to build unity and control, this was a direct challenge. The Gospel of Judas represented everything the church feared. It portrayed Judas as a hero, someone who understood Jesus better than the other disciples. It suggested that the church's traditional teachings might not hold all the answers. Most dangerously, it implied that spiritual truth wasn't something the church could control. To the early church leaders, these ideas weren't just wrong, they were dangerous. They labeled such beliefs as heresy, a term that meant rebellion against the truth as defined by the church. They saw heretics as threats to the very foundation of Christian unity, not just as people with different opinions. When church leaders met to decide the content of the Bible, they were deliberate in their choices. By the time the process was complete in the late 4th century, they had selected 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that presented a consistent view of Jesus and his teachings. They excluded other texts, such as the Gospel of Judas. But the church didn't just ignore these texts, they actively worked to suppress them. They condemned, concealed, or destroyed writings such as the Gospel of Judas. To possess or spread these banned texts could result in severe punishment, including excommunication or worse. The early church saw this suppression as necessary. They feared that the emergence of alternative teachings, such as those found in the Gospel of Judas, would lead to confusion and division. They believed the only way to preserve Christianity's strength and unity was to control the narrative, and that meant silencing anything that questioned their authority. The Gospel of Judas wasn't just another story about Jesus. It challenged core ideas about sin, salvation, and authority. If Judas was following Jesus' instructions, as the Gospel suggests, then his so-called betrayal wasn't an act of evil, but one of divine purpose. This would require a re-examination of traditional notions about sin and forgiveness. Even more unsettling was the Gospel's focus on knowledge over faith. The Gnostics believed that salvation came from understanding hidden truths, not from following the rules or rituals of the church. If people started to believe this, they might no longer rely on church leaders to guide them. They might begin seeking their own path to God, undermining the church's role as the gatekeeper of salvation. Labeling the Gospel of Judas and similar texts as heresy wasn't just about theology, it was about maintaining power. By condemning these alternative views, the Church reinforced its authority. It sent a clear message: only certain voices could speak for Jesus, and only certain teachings could lead to salvation. This wasn't unique to Christianity. Throughout history, those in power have often used the concept of heresy to silence dissent and consolidate control. Whether it's governments, religions, or other institutions, the story of heresy is a story about fear. Fear of losing influence, fear of new ideas, and fear of change. People have remembered Judas Iscariot for centuries as the epitome of betrayal, but what if his story is more complex than we've been told? The Gospel of Judas dares us to see him not as a villain, but as someone who made an extraordinary sacrifice, someone who followed a path others couldn't understand to fulfill a greater purpose. This shift in perspective isn't just about Judas, it's about how we interpret history, how we judge others, and how we seek meaning in our own lives. Judas's story prompts us to contemplate: could it be that we misunderstand those we label as villains? And what does that say about the way we see ourselves? The idea of secret truths, or gnosis, runs like a golden thread through the Gospel of Judas. It tells us that understanding the divine isn't about following rules or rituals. It's about uncovering what's hidden, even when it's difficult. This message is both inspiring and unsettling. It offers freedom, but demands courage. The Gospel of Judas reminds us that knowledge isn't always safe. It can disrupt, challenge, and force us to confront uncomfortable realities. But it also has the power to set us free, to help us see beyond the surface and connect with something greater than ourselves. The banning of the Gospel of Judas wasn't just a decision about theology, it was a statement about control. By labeling it as heresy, early church leaders reinforced their authority and silenced voices that didn't align with their vision. This act of suppression highlights a timeless truth. Those in power often fear ideas that question their dominance. But history has a way of revealing the hidden. The rediscovery of the Gospel of Judas reminds us that silenced stories don't stay buried forever. They resurface, asking us to reconsider what we think we know and who gets to decide the truth. If you're finding value in uncovering these hidden truths, diving into the mysteries of forbidden history, and rethinking the stories we've always believed, consider supporting us with a super thanks. Your support is what keeps us exploring, questioning, and sharing these incredible revelations. The Gospel of Judas isn't just about betrayal or knowledge, it's a celebration of spiritual individualism. It teaches us that we must seek the divine for ourselves, not receive it from others. This idea resonates today as more people look beyond traditional institutions to find their own paths to meaning and connection. Judas's journey is a reminder that the search for truth is rarely easy. It can be lonely, painful, and misunderstood, but it's also deeply rewarding. It's a call to courage, asking us to embrace the unknown and trust our inner voice. Even now, the story of Judas has the power to make us uncomfortable. It forces us to question authority, to see complexity in the people we judge, and to confront the possibility that the truths we hold dear might be incomplete. But isn't that the essence of growth? We must confront our fears, pose challenging inquiries, and broaden our perspectives to explore novel opportunities. The Gospel of Judas isn't just a relic of the past, it's a challenge for the present. It dares us to explore the boundaries of faith, knowledge, and individuality. It reminds us that truth is rarely simple and that the journey to find it is as important as the answers we discover. Will we continue to cling to the familiar, or will we dare to delve deeper, ask questions, and search for the hidden truths that lie ahead? Thanks for watching. Join our community by subscribing to this channel. Until the next video.